The Spurs 2023 preseason schedule is out, and who can possibly be the new Spurs rivals?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, this is Nathan Ray Clark from Criminal Minds and Modern Family, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs, hosted by Victor Wembanyama's new best friend, Jeff Garcia.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. I am glad to have you back. Hope you're having a great end of the work week. TGIF, we thank you for always making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. You guys are the best. You guys are the everydayers. We always appreciate you subscribing on YouTube, Ken's 5 Plus app, iTunes, Spotify. The list goes on and on. We thank you. Hey, no tech issues. Last episode, we had major tech issues. It was so bad we had to resort to audio, but we're back with a video episode for you right here on Locked On Spurs. What are we talking about today? We're looking at the Spurs preseason slate, find out who the Spurs will be tuning up against for the regular season, what games should you go to and why, and then we're going to get into kind of a meaty topic here. Which teams can be the new Spurs rivals? There's kind of rules to this game. We're going to play in a bit. But yeah, and by the way, our guest today is going to be Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast. So we'll bring him in just a few seconds. Hey, so preseason's right around the corner. Fans are gearing up. You probably got a Wemby jersey by now. Something Wemby, something Spurs. Yeah, it's exciting times. Exciting times. You know, I look back at this Wemby era that's about to begin. I look back how it all began, and that being, Brian Wright. A lot of Spurs fans didn't take a shine to him initially. Oh, look what he did in Detroit. It was nothing. Look what has he done so far? He's just R.C. Buford's puppet. But little by little, he's starting to prove himself. Little by little, he's looking like maybe the game plan, that long game play, is working out. The Spurs, 19 national games, thanks to Wemby. How did the Spurs get a Wemby? By tanking. How did they also get that? Building a team possibly around him by making trades. DeJounte Murray, Derek White, the list goes on and on. Cap space. Spurs have one of the best, or at least the best amount of cap space they can play with, thanks to Brian Wright. Sure, he had some help along the way. Maybe there were some pitfalls along the way. Josh Primo, that's probably the big one. But all in all, not a bad start to the Wembanyama era because of Brian Wright. Say what you will, and I know there's a lot of naysayers about him, especially from Spurs land, but the proof is in the pudding. He's low-key making it happen. Trading away guys like Drew Eubanks and Thaddeus Young for first-round picks, getting over on Atlanta, getting all that haul back. The Spurs are set for the long game. And that long game being, can they bring in free agents? Yeah, because they have the cash. Can they make a trade on trade day to move up? Yes, because they have draft capital. Can they flip players for more established players? They sure can, because they have team-friendly contracts. Somebody had a big hand on that, and that's Brian Wright. So as much as we're going to praise the Spurs and Wemby and Pop and that, in the shadows is somebody who's really being the architect of this new era in San Antonio. R.C. Buford had his time, did a bang-up job, big three, finding Tony Parker. We know that story. Now it's Brian Wright's time. Now we're entering the new chapter, and it looks like he is off on the right foot. So if you are a fan of Brian Wright, little round of applause for him. But let's go to bring in our guest. He is Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast. He is the architect of Two Shots Podcast and the Animal Sports Podcast that's on YouTube. By the way, Joe, remember that microphone you recommended to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it broke. So that's why I have to hold it.
Doesn't surprise me that it broke. You have a knack for being, a guy that does not get along with technology. So
me and tech do not get along.
And then the last you had, I believe that one too, it broke. You had it in your bag or during a move.
Yeah. Well, then the last episode of Locked On Spurs, it was a disaster. Like nothing was working. Nothing. It got to the point where the guest and we tried multiple versions to do this, and we couldn't get it going. So I had to resort to audio. But the good thing is it's just off season still. So it's no big whoop, but everything is smooth sailing as I jinx myself now, Joe. So forgive me, everybody, if I'm holding the mic close, because this part still works. It's just the stand don't work. So Joe, Thank you for coming on Locked On Spurs at the last minute, filling in for Vinny Vencetta, who was originally scheduled for today, but he got sick, and Joe is coming in. Also, Joe, I think you may have jinxed Vinny because yesterday you said, hey, if Vinny doesn't come on, I'm your guy, so we can try to three-peat and get it on national news. So, Joe, The pressure's on. Can we do it 3 in a row?
We'll see, man. And I'm going to tell Vinny, I'm going to send a message to him, just like Master Yoda said to Luke. This is why you fail.
No, he's sick. He legitimately got the flu. He actually dipped out of covering some high school football.
Poor guy, man.
He got sick. Yeah, I hope he gets better. But Joe, we'll talk about your show, Two Shots Podcast, and the Alamo Sports Podcast on YouTube later on this episode of Locked On Spurs. Joe, let's dive into the Spurs preseason schedule. I believe they have 5 games. They're going to start off on the road, I believe, against Oklahoma City. What are the teams the Spurs are going to be facing this preseason slate?
Well, on the preseason docket, you got 5 games, and you have 5 games. You have 3 of those games that are going to be on national TV. So October the 9th, they're going to kick it off against OKC at 7 p.m. on NBA TV. October the 13th versus Miami, 7 p.m. That's going to be on TNT.
Right.
But the games that are going to be occurring on the October 16th and the 18th, they are slated for a 7 p.m. tip. They're not on national TV, which leads me to believe they're probably going to be televised. They're not non-televised games. You're going to have to go ahead and watch them on the Spurs app and have to go for that horrible, quirky nonsense, dude. I don't know what they're doing, but that is not working. Just put it on the CW, put it on Ken's 5. The Ken's
or
5
stream it, or just stream it.
Yeah, like just stream it for free. Put it on YouTube. They have a YouTube channel. Just put it up on YouTube for free. And the last game is October the 20th against Golden State. That's a late tip, 9 p.m. That's going to be on NBA TV. So your best friend here is going to be NBA TV because NBA TV is also going to be showing a handful of games as well during the regular season because the Spurs have 19 nationally televised games. So that's going to be a good thing.
For sure. But as far as the preseason goes, talk about the Wemby effect right there. Preseason national televised games, that is pretty huge for a preseason match. And Joe, when I looked at the preseason slate and I saw OKC to start the preseason, my first thought was, wow, they're really going to shove it. Wemby versus Chet. They're really going to push that agenda, and they're going to do it right on the right foot to start the preseason slate. As much as the game against OKC is going to be fun to watch because of what they're trying to form the rivalry. I'm actually looking forward to those 2 Houston games back to back. Joe, this offseason, Spurs fans and Houston fans have been battling, haven't they?
Oh man, there's no love lost there between the San Antonio Spurs fans and the Houston fans. Houston fans crossed the line when they started talking about our city. We hadn't even brought their city into the fray, But once they started bad-mouthing the city, all the gloves came off, and there was some serious mudslinging going on. So it's a heated rivalry, and it doesn't even have nothing to do with the teams at this juncture. It's fan versus fan.
It's gotten personal. It's definitely gotten
very personal. I'm sure that Twitter is going to be lit up on those 2 games because they're going to be going back and forth the entire game.
So much for meaningless basketball in the preseason, because the preseason is just all about getting in shape, fine-tuning things, getting as close to ready as you can be for the start of the regular season. But it's interesting, though, the Houston and San Antonio Spurs, both teams kind of going in similar directions, a rebuild, amassing talent via the draft. Houston's had a bevy of top first-round picks. Alfred Sengun this year, one of the Thompson brothers is going out there. So they're really getting it going. They're trying to put something together. Got Ime Udoka, Jalen Green. The list goes on and on. A very, on paper, a good team, but so far it really hasn't panned out. So I think those 2 games, Houston and San Antonio, are going to be very heated. Hey, we're not done talking about your preseason slate. When we get back, we're going to continue the chat about the preseason. Which game is Joe going to go to and why? Much more right here on Locked On Spurs. Hey, I want to talk to you about FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times, you heard that right, 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. It's a lot of money. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Check it out. That's $200 you can spend betting from everything from the money line to the over and under to who you think is going to be the first home run. all on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. I mean, what more can you want? Well, there's no better place to bet on MLB than on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I go there. I love they're looking at their NBA futures, their projections on the Spurs and Wemby. It's all there. You got to go to FanDuel right now. Sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA and get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOnNBA. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. And we are back right here on Locked On Spurs. I am Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken 5 San Antonio. He is Joe Garcia, rocking the favorite cap that I love, the Coyote cap. Is that the one? Or no, that's a sticker.
No, this is the Coyote cap.
That is the cap.
That's not a sticker. This is actually like
okay. I see it.
Embroidered it on the hat itself.
No, nice. Well, I don't remember you having one that was more centered.
Yeah, that's another one that I have. Okay. It's an older one.
Right.
That one's been retired, bro, because it's really frail at this juncture. I'm not going to wear it anymore.
Yeah. Well, you can follow Joe on Twitter at 2 Shots Podcast. Check out his show, 2 Shots Podcast, and the YouTube show, Alamo Sports Podcast.
It's called Alamo City Sportscast.
There it is right there. He's going to talk to you about that and more right here on Locked On Spurs. Joe, let's wrap up our chat about the preseason slate. Are you going to go to any of the games? Which ones do you want to go to, and why do you want to go to those games?
Well, the ones that I'm going to probably wind up going to are the ones that my package, my whole season ticket.
Right. You call me money bags. Look at you, Mr. I have season tickets.
So my ticket rep is going to be sending me, I guess, the tickets just like they all are assigned to.
You have a ticket rep. I see how you are, Joe.
Yeah.
I see how it is.
I think the ones that I'm going to wind up going to is probably going to be, I think, the Miami game.
Yeah.
And probably one or two of the Houston games as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you want to go to one of the Houston games if you're a Spurs fan just to see or test the waters of the rivalry. How heated is it right now? That infamous video where the Rockets lost the draft lottery to San Antonio, and the guy goes, "Effing Spurs, I knew it. Oh, the effing Spurs." So that adds more fuel to the fire. No, unfortunately, I'm probably not going to go to Spurs OKC, but I want to see Spurs OKC. I want to see Chet and Wemby. I want to see if this is the new rivalry that the NBA is trying to shove down our throat, and it might turn out that way. In the debate of the Rookie of the Year, many are saying it's going to be Wemby. It's going to be Chet. That's what the majority of the opinion is, Joe, is Chet or Wemby. And you know what, Joe? They're right. I think it'd probably come down to those two. What do you think? Unless you have a dark horse.
Well, the dark horses that I have here, when I'm looking, on paper, like you said, you have the normal, you have Houston, of course, another rival. But the ones that we don't really talk much about, it's going to be like your Portland Trailblazers.
Oh, no. Well, because of Scoot Henderson, right? He's the dark horse of the Rookie of the Year award.
Exactly.
But do you think it's going to come down to Chet and Wemby?
I think it will come down to Chet and Wemby, and that's what I was going to get at as well, because you don't really look at OKC nowadays as one of those teams that screams at you, oh, this is a heated rivalry between the Spurs. But I think that's about to kick back up again. It was a heated rivalry when they had Russell Westbrook, when they had Kevin Durant, they had James Harden. Those were heated games that in heated playoff games, that the Spurs would go in to battle with Oklahoma City Thunder. But now, since, things have died down a little bit and both teams haven't been very good, now with the advent of one Chet Holmgren coming into the fray now and going to be playing this season because he's healthy, I think that's going to be one of those games or one of these teams that Spurs fans are going to be like, hey, we don't really like OKC because they're taking some shine away from Victor Wembanyama. So I think that's going to be a rivalry you really want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and Joe's teasing you a little bit about the next segment that we're going to talk about, new Spurs rivalry. Right now, we're talking about the Spurs preseason games, 5 on the slate, nationally televised games. If we talk about that, Joe, you look at that, they're getting respect because of the Wemby effect. He is there, so they're going to want to put him front and center as much, they being the NBA. I look at the preseason match, again, what I'm expecting to see is a lot of, clunky moments. Getting Wemby integrated, getting his teammates and him
play. How much playing time you think he's going to get?
Oh, I think he'll get quite a bit, but I'm not saying they're going to play 4 quarters and all 48 minutes. I'm predicting about 15 to 20, 18 to 25 in that range, just to get him going. He'll probably play. It'll be like this. His minutes will spike. He'll be very low against OKC and then kind of spike as we get closer to the start of the regular season and the end of the preseason. So, yeah, there's your preseason slate. Let us know which games you're going to go to. You can let me know on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Let Joe know on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. When we get back, we're going to talk about new rivalries. Could OKC be one of them? We'll give you the rules when we get back right here on Locked On Spurs with Joe Garcia. But, Joe, we got to talk about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. My goodness, they are just blowing up day by day. If you haven't gone to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee, you got to go right now. Located at 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. That's near the Stone area. Over 300 5-star reviews, cannot be wrong. Open every day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can go in and get yourself the Alien. Joe, have you had the Alien yet?
Have not had the Alien yet, but I do plan on partaking of the Alien to see what it tastes like.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Basically, the Alien, if you can't figure it out, it's an honor and tribute of Victor Wembanyama. Full can of Red Bull, green apple, and kiwi. Very good mixture. You got to try it. They also have the OG OJ. Now, I know, Joe, you've had that one, right?
That one I have had. I like that one. That one's good.
Yeah. Did it remind you of Orange Julius?
Yeah, from back in the day at Ingram Mall. Yeah, it sure did.
That's right. The Orange Julius is back, but not really in the same fashion, but it's recreated at Mudslingers, only at Mudslingers. Go check it out. They got a wide variety of drinks, dairy alternatives, low-fat drinks. They have, the OG OJ, if you want to take it easy, not a lot of caffeine. They have the Red Bull Lightning Infused series, really good series. That's one of my favorites. They even have the Mudslinger signature drink, the dark chocolate, caramel, espresso. It's just really good. You got to go right now and get it. 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. They also have a new drink called the Sub-Zero. Joe, that's been their biggest hit recently. Basically, UTSA's Frank Harris is on board now with Mudslingers, and they made a drink in his honor. It's called the Sub-Zero. I think all of San Antonio was pretty excited for the Sub-Zero, weren't they, Joe?
Oh, yeah. The Sub-Zero is always something that San Antonio fans are getting up for, especially if it has to do with UTSA football, and especially with Frank Harris.
Funny story, how that all started was they being the Mudslingers were trying to play around with Patty Mills, luring him back to San Antonio, saying, hey, if you come back, we'll name a drink after you. We'll make one after you. Frank Harris saw that and wanted to be a part of that kind of thing. And the Mudslingers was like, hell yeah, we'll get you on board. So he's on board. And again, you can find that drink only at Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. You can find them on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. The list goes on and on at Mudslinger SATX, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. I go there. Joe goes there. All of San Antonio goes there. You should go there too. Life is too short for bland coffee. All right, Joe's going to wrap up our chat and play a game called Who Are the New Spurs Rivals? Now, it's very simple, Joe. So everybody else, listen up. Which teams next season could be the new Spurs rivals? The rule is you cannot pick the easy ones. So you cannot pick the Lakers. You can't pick the Rockets. You can't pick the Mavericks. That's too easy. Which teams could be the new Spurs rival? Joe, take it away. Are you still going with OKC, as you said in the previous segment, or are you going to pick another team?
I think OKC is going to be one of those rivals that you can go ahead and just pick right away. But another one, like I was saying, was going to probably be Portland.
Yeah. And
the other low key that's really been kind of these a rivalry, so to speak, in the making is going to be the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
The New Orleans Pelicans knocked the Spurs out a couple seasons ago out of the play-in. And every time the Spurs play the Pelicans, it doesn't end well for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
More than not, So I think that's a game that Spurs fans are going to really start looking at, and hoping that the Spurs can best the New Orleans Pelicans like me, So
yeah,
I think that's going to probably turn into a rivalry. Another one too, it's not really a rivalry, but for some reason the Spurs seem to have a little bit of trouble with this team is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay.
So I think the Timberwolves too are a team that you can look at and be like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's see how good they're going to be. But one of the teams though, that low key has been a rival of the Spurs over the last couple of seasons, the Sacramento Kings, Jeff. Low key, they have been adding and adding and adding to their team, and they've been adding some of the Spurs cast-offs to their team, So I think that's a rivalry in the making. I think at some juncture, if the Spurs are going to make it, let's say, into the playoffs or even further into the playoffs, I think they're going to have to get through the Sacramento Kings at some point.
Interesting. Joe, at this rate, you're pretty much picking every team, right?
No, not
how many teams in a row? Like 5 or 8?
Up at
you're like, it's a dart. It's like, okay, one of them's going to stick. All good picks. The one that maybe I kind of disagree. I don't think Minnesota is there. That's the one team I don't think will become a rival of the Spurs, a new rival.
They
I
are.
agree with you about the Pelicans for sure.
Yeah.
The Kings, that was on my short list too. I think the Kings could possibly be one, but I'm going to throw you one. I'm going to go with the new Spurs rival, that being Memphis Grizzlies. Both young teams, both now have a star franchise player. Yes, I know about the Ja Morant situation, but you talked about Spurs infusion or the DNA. The Memphis has that Spurs DNA too, Tyler Jenkins. So they got the head coach who has Spurs roots. They're an interdivisional team in the Southwest Division. They could be battling for Southwest Division supremacy in the future once Wemby and the kids get going, and if John Moran just stays out of trouble. I'm going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr., there's another thread right there to the Spurs. His dad, Jaren Jackson, played for the Spurs. So I'm picking Memphis. Joe, your thoughts?
Well, Memphis isn't a bad pick, to make, but again, are they really a rivalry with the Spurs?
No, I'm saying these what teams could possibly be the next rival, not currently.
Yeah, I get that.
The next, yeah.
But I think the Spurs are still maybe a couple seasons away from even thinking about becoming a rival with the Memphis Grizzlies, because Memphis right now, they're just going to mop the floor with the Spurs. They just don't have the same level of talent that Memphis does right now. There's a big discrepancy when you're looking at not only talent, but experience,
For sure.
There you go. The Spurs are going to probably get there sooner than not, and maybe another 2 or 3 seasons. But yeah, I can see that flourishing at some point in time where you're going to have these heated battles going into the playoffs or wanting to go further into the playoffs. And again, I think the teams are going to be Sacramento and probably going to be the Memphis Grizzlies at some juncture as well.
I'm trying to think of an Eastern Conference team. The only I can think of is Atlanta because of DeJounte.
Yeah.
Perhaps that may
the
be
Miami Heat too, man. Miami
is years ahead of the Spurs. I think, they're talking about mopping against the Spurs. I think that's probably it right there. Another Eastern Conference team I can maybe Orlando. I can see that becoming one, maybe not right now, just flourishing into one. That could possibly be one. Paolo Banchero, you got Wemby, influx of new generational players, possibly with Wemby if he does pan out. So that's another Eastern Conference team I'm going to keep an eye out for. But Joe, speaking of Wemby, some quick Spurs news and notes. Joe, I heard you spent over $67,000 for a Wembanyama card. Congratulations, Joe. Good job.
I didn't, but somebody.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I thought you did.
Somebody had a thing they wanted me to tell you, because I was in a chat right now with Chris Leha and all of them. They were doing a Twitter Spaces. So they were saying, one of the guys says, tell Jeff about the Prism card. I think he was saying that maybe it's one of the guys that came out as a guest that maybe drew a Wemby card.
Oh yeah, Jacob. Yeah. He got a base Wemby card from the Bowman University line. But going back to the topic here, in case you didn't hear, at a golden auction, a Wembanyama card, supposedly the first ever card he's ever signed in his Mets 92 jersey, sold online at an auction over $67,000. These cards are going like hotcakes, Joe. I mean, people are spending top dollar. And if he does pan out to become that generational player, that guy might look back and say, I'm glad I spent $67K, and now maybe he doubled it. You never know. So
but here's the kicker with that, Jeff. Rudy, I had him on the show earlier today on the Alamo City Sportscast, and he was very specific in pointing out that in that particular card that went for $67,000, Wembanyama was not in a Spurs uniform.
Right. Yeah, he was in the Mets
92.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what happens when finally the season starts and Wembanyama is now going to be featured in a Spurs uniform, and people are going to look more maybe towards that rookie card with him in the Spurs jersey versus the Mets 92. So who knows? That's a big gamble,
Right. Well, if a Spurs jersey card Wemby thing, sells for that kind of money, it has to be what we saw with that golden auction, the 67,000 one. That one was a one of one. The way they designed it had like a reflections on it, and it was his signature and supposedly his first ever. So that's why, so maybe in a Spurs jersey, it'll have to be a special card, with a different layout and his signature saying my first Spurs card I ever signed, something to that effect. Then it'll reach to those kind of levels. Oh, by the way, grading has got to get a perfect 10 for that to happen. So there's so many things that go into it. But Joe, would you ever spend that kind of amount of money for any sports memorabilia?
No, I wouldn't spend that much money on any sports memorabilia. I wouldn't even spend a couple of thousand on sports memorabilia. I'd rather invest that money and make me more money in the long run. I need to look forward to a retirement, man. And you're going to tell me that when you're going to get close to retirement, you're going to be able to retire off of one card that you got. I don't know if the value is going to hold up that long. And that's the thing with sports memorabilia. When it's hot, it's hot. You get a hot streak. You want to go ahead and try to sell high versus trying to sell low.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He is Joe Garcia of Two Shots Podcast and a new show on YouTube. Joe, tell us about that and what you got cooking.
Yeah, so the new show that we got going on is called the Alamo City Sportscast, and it's going to be featured on our YouTube channel, which is part of the Alamo City Podcast Network. It's our flagship show. It comes out Mondays through Fridays from 12 to 1. Jeff, you are a frequent guest on the show, along with another healthy dose of other regulars. And, it's a lot of fun. We talk about sports, we talk about pop culture, and we talk about entertainment. We get into geek talk when Jeff joins the show as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I gave everybody a lesson recently on GoBots, like how they started and what, and all this stuff. Yeah, exactly. It was supposed to be a debate about Transformers versus GoBots, but it turned into an educational seminar about the nerdiest thing you could think of, GoBots. So Joe, yeah, he does a good job. As he mentioned, on YouTube. They have another show. I think it's called the Fantasy Gods. That's part of their network as well. Mm-hmm. So they're growing little by little. Check out Joe on Twitter at Two Shots Podcast. And from there, you can see the links. And I believe you broadcast the YouTube show on Twitter, correct?
Yeah, the show comes out on, we live stream on Twitter. We live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and also I'm live streaming on LinkedIn as well. Okay. So I hope to pick up a couple more as well as we start expanding a little bit more. So we might be featured on Twitch and probably Trovo and some other places.
Joe, hopefully we'll make it 3 in a row national news. We're crossing fingers. Joe and I, the last 2 shows he and I did have been on national news. We'll see if this is the 3rd one. Crossing fingers. Good things come in 3, Joe. So hopefully this will be a nice home run. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. You can let Joe know your thoughts on his thoughts on this episode at Two Shots Podcast. You can let me know on Twitter at Jeff G Spurs Zone. Subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, Kent5 Plus app. The list goes on. And we thank you.
And I was going to say one more thing.
What's that?
Before we end, I said if I make it 3 for 3, I'm going to start having to charge to come out on loads.
Man, look at Joe. And y'all call me money. And y'all call me money bags. Look who's looking for money right now.
An Orange Julius is what it'll cost you for much.
All right, I think I can afford that. All right. So as I go get my Orange Julius for Joe, he is Joe Garcia. I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.